the Faceless One's origin. On the distant planet of Chiron 9, a world of vast technology and rich cultures, lived a renowned scientist known as Dr. Kale Voss. Respected for his intellect and revered for his innovations, he was the pride of the Chironian people. But fate had a cruel twist in store. A catastrophic lab accident left Dr. Voss disfigured and broken, both in body and spirit. With his face scarred beyond recognition, he donned a mask to hide his shame and retreated from society, becoming a figure of fear and legend, known only as the Faceless One. For years, the Faceless One lived in the shadows, his heart hardened by anger and pain. His name became synonymous with terror, as tales spread of his sinister experiments and dark dealings with otherworldly entities. Despite his malevolent reputation, whispers of his former brilliance still lingered, hinting at the man he once was. One fateful day, a young and curious engineer named Lara stumbled upon the Faceless One's lair deep within the planet's core. Driven by a mix of fear and fascination, she ventured into the dark depths, determined to uncover the truth behind the myths. As she approached, the air grew thick with tension, and Lyra's heart raced with anticipation. She found him, cloaked in shadows, his eyes glowing with a cold, otherworldly light. But as she looked closer, instead of fear, Lyra felt a deep sorrow for the tortured soul before her. Gathering her courage, she spoke to him, her voice steady and filled with compassion. To her surprise, the Faceless One listened. Lyra's kindness pierced through his hardened exterior, awakening a long-buried sense of humanity within him. As they talked, he revealed his tragic past, the pain of his disfigurement, and the overwhelming loneliness that had driven him to darkness. Moved by his story, Lyra vowed to help the Faceless One find redemption. Together, they embarked on a journey across Chiron 9, facing dangers and adversaries at every turn. Their bond grew stronger with each challenge, and slowly, the Faceless One began to rediscover the light within himself. As they traversed the diverse landscapes of Chiron 9, from the towering spires of the city of Zephyrus to the vast, crystalline deserts of the Sirion wastes, the Faceless One's reputation began to change. No longer a figure of fear, he became a symbol of hope and redemption, inspiring those who heard his tale to believe in the power of compassion and forgiveness. But their journey was far from over. As word of the Faceless One's transformation spread, it reached the ears of a powerful warlord named Zorax the Conqueror, who had set his sights on Chiron 9. Zorax, driven by greed and lust for power, forged an alliance with a dark entity from beyond the stars, granting him unimaginable strength. With his army in tow, Zorax descended upon Chiron 9, bringing destruction and chaos in his wake. Lyra and the Faceless One knew that they had to act fast to save their home and its people. As they prepared for the battle ahead, the Faceless One realized that his redemption would not be complete until he faced his greatest challenge yet. In the darkness of night, with the planet on the brink of annihilation, Lyra and the Faceless One stood together, ready to face Zorax and his forces. Their bond, forged in the fires of adversity, would be tested like never before. But the Faceless One knew that with Lyra by his side, he could overcome even the most insurmountable odds. Their journey had just begun, and the fate of Chiron 9 hung in the balance. The battle for Chiron 9. As Zorax the Conqueror's warships descended upon the once peaceful planet of Chiron 9, the skies were ablaze with the light of destruction. The once vibrant cities were now shrouded in smoke and fire, their towering spires crumbling under the relentless assault. The people of Chiron 9, unaccustomed to war, fled in terror as Zorax's forces spread across the planet like a plague. But in the heart of the chaos, there was a flicker of hope. The Faceless One and Lyra, now seen as leaders and symbols of resistance, rallied the remaining defenders of Chiron 9. Engineers, scientists, and civilians alike joined their cause, determined to protect their home from the invaders. The Faceless One's knowledge of the planet's technology and Lyra's unwavering determination gave them a fighting chance, but they knew that their greatest challenge lay ahead. In a hidden underground facility, the Faceless One and Lyra devised a plan to take down Zorax. They would have to infiltrate his command ship, a massive fortress that hovered ominously above the planet, and disable the dark energy source that fueled his powers. It was a mission fraught with danger, but it was their only hope. As they prepared for the mission, the Faceless One found himself plagued by doubts. Could he really lead his people to victory? Could he, a man once consumed by darkness, now be the beacon of hope that Chiron 9 needed? Lyra, sensing his inner turmoil, placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "Remember why you're doing this," she said softly. "You've already come so far. You're not the man you used to be. You're stronger now, not because of what you've been through, but because of who you've become." Her words gave him strength, and the Faceless One knew that he couldn't let his fears hold him back. The people of Chiron 9 were counting on him, and he would not fail them. The infiltration team, led by the Faceless One and Lyra, set out under the cover of darkness. Using the Faceless One's knowledge of Cyronian technology, they managed to slip past Zorax's defenses and board the command ship. Inside, they encountered fierce resistance from Zorax's elite guards, but they fought with everything they had, driven by the knowledge that the fate of their planet rested on their shoulders. As they made their way deeper into the ship, the atmosphere grew colder, and a sense of dread filled the air. They could feel the dark energy pulsing through the walls, a reminder of the malevolent force that Zorax had allied with. But they pressed on, knowing that they were close to their goal. Finally, they reached the heart of the ship, where the dark energy core was housed. It was a massive, swirling vortex of shadow, radiating a malevolent power that seemed to sap the strength from their bodies. The Faceless One knew that destroying it would not be easy, but it was their only chance. As they prepared to disable the core, Zorax himself appeared, his towering form bathed in the glow of the dark energy. His eyes burned with an otherworldly fire, and his voice echoed with a sinister resonance. "You dare challenge me," he snarled, his voice dripping with contempt. "You, who were once nothing but a broken, faceless wretch? You think you can stop me?" The Faceless One stepped forward, his resolve unshaken. "I may have been broken," he replied, his voice steady, "but I am not defeated. I fight not for myself, but for the people of Chiron 9, and I will stop you." Zorax laughed, a cruel, mocking sound that echoed through the chamber. "You are a fool," he sneered, "but if you wish to die a hero, so be it." With a roar, Zorax unleashed a wave of dark energy, intending to crush the Faceless One and his companions. But the Faceless One, drawing on the strength that Lyra had helped him rediscover, stood his ground. With a swift movement, he activated a device he had crafted, a device that could disrupt the dark energy field. The energy wave faltered, and Zorax's power flickered for a moment. Seeing their chance, Lyra and the others rushed to the core, working quickly to disable it. Zorax, enraged by their defiance, lunged at the Faceless One, intent on destroying him. The two clashed in a fierce battle, Zorax's dark power against the Faceless One's will. The battle was intense, but the Faceless One fought with a determination that surprised even him. Every blow he landed, every block he made, was not just for himself, but for everyone who was depending on him. And as the battle raged on, Lyra managed to complete the shutdown sequence. With a final, desperate effort, the Faceless One pushed Zorax back just as the core began to destabilize. The dark energy that had given Zorax his strength now turned against him, consuming him in a vortex of shadow. With a scream of rage, Zorax was pulled into the collapsing core, his form disintegrating into nothingness. As the ship began to crumble around them, the Faceless One and Lyra raced to escape. They'd barely made it out before the ship exploded in a brilliant flash of light, the dark energy obliterated along with it. Back on the surface, the people of Chiron 9 watched in awe as the command ship was destroyed, their hope renewed. The Faceless One and Lyra emerged from the wreckage, greeted by cheers and tears of joy. They had done the impossible. They had defeated Zorax and saved their world. But the Faceless One knew that their journey was not over. Though Zorax was gone, the scars of war remained, and there was much work to be done to rebuild their world. But for the first time in years, he felt a sense of peace. He had found his redemption, not through power or revenge, but through the strength of his heart and the bonds he had formed. And as the people of Siron 9 looked to the future, they knew that with the Faceless One and Lyra by their side, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Rebuilding Siron 9. In the wake of Zorax's defeat, Siron 9 stood on the brink of a new era. The once thriving planet, now scarred by the ravages of war, faced the daunting task of rebuilding from the ashes. But the spirit of its people had not been broken. Instead, it was stronger than ever, fueled by the courage and resilience that had seen them through the darkest of times. The Faceless One and Lyra, now hailed as heroes, took on the responsibility of leading the efforts to restore their world. The task was monumental, but they approached it with the same determination that had carried them through the battle against Zorax. Together, they inspired the people of Siron 9 to come together, pooling their resources and skills to rebuild what had been lost. The first step was to address the immediate needs of the survivors. Many had lost their homes, and the planet's infrastructure was in ruins. The Faceless One, drawing on his deep understanding of Sironian technology, spearheaded the efforts to restore power and communications. Using his knowledge, he devised new, more resilient systems that could withstand future threats. His work was not just a technical achievement, it was a symbol of hope, a promise that Siron 9 would rise again. Lyra, meanwhile, focused on the human side of the recovery. She organized relief efforts, ensuring that food, water, and medical supplies were distributed to those in need. Her tireless dedication earned her the respect and admiration of the people, who saw in her a beacon of compassion and strength. She also worked to heal the emotional wounds left by the war, creating spaces where survivors could come together to share their stories and support each other. As the weeks passed, the scars of battle began to fade, replaced by the steady progress of reconstruction. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen, and the cities of Siron 9 slowly regained their former glory. The Faceless One and Lyra continued to lead by example, never asking of others what they were not willing to do themselves. But even as they worked to rebuild their world, new challenges emerged. The war had left Siron 9 vulnerable, and there were those who sought to take advantage of the planet's weakened state. Mercenaries, pirates, and other unsavory characters began to target Siron 9, seeing it as an easy mark. The Faceless One knew that they could not afford to be complacent. The planet's defenses had to be strengthened, and the people needed to be prepared to defend their home. He began to work on a new project, one that would ensure Siron 9's safety in the years to come, a planetary defense system unlike any other. This system would not rely on brute force, but on intelligence and innovation. It would use the natural resources of Siron 9 to create a network of energy shields and automated drones that could detect and neutralize threats before they could do any harm. The Faceless One poured his heart and soul into this project, determined to protect the world that had given him a second chance. As the defense system took shape, Laura continued her work in the community. She established schools and training centers, where the next generation could learn the skills they needed to rebuild and protect their world. She also encouraged the people to embrace the lessons of the past, compassion, unity, and the strength that comes from standing together. Under their leadership, Siron 9 began to flourish once more. The people, inspired by the example of the Faceless One and Lyra, took pride in their world and their ability to overcome adversity. The bonds forged in the fires of war grew stronger, and a new sense of purpose took root in the hearts of the Axironians. But despite their successes, the Faceless One could not shake a lingering sense of unease. He knew that the universe was vast and unpredictable, and that new threats could arise at any time. He also knew that his past, though behind him, was not forgotten. There were still those who feared him, who saw in him only the dark legend of the Faceless One, and he wondered if he could ever truly escape that shadow. One night, as he stood alone atop a newly rebuilt tower, Looking out over the city of Zephyrus, Lyra found him. She had always had a way of knowing when something was troubling him, and tonight was no different. "You're thinking about the future," she said, joining him at the edge of the balcony. He nodded, his gaze distant. "I can't help but wonder if we've done enough, if we've really made a difference, or if the darkness will come back, stronger than before." Lyra looked at him, her eyes filled with the quiet strength that had guided them through so many trials. "We've done more than just rebuild," she said. "We've given people hope. We've shown them that no matter how dark things get, there's always a way forward, and that's something no enemy can take away." The Faceless One turned to her, his mask hiding his expression, but his voice softening. "I couldn't have done any of this without you, Lyra. You've been my light in the darkness." "And you've been mine," she replied, smiling. "We'll face whatever comes next together, just like we always have." In that moment, the Faceless One felt a sense of peace settle over him. The future was uncertain, but he knew that with Lyra by his side, he could face whatever challenges lay ahead. Together, they had turned the tide of darkness and brought their world back from the brink. And together, they would continue to build a future where hope and light would always prevail. As the dawn began to break over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the city, the Faceless One and Lyra stood side by side, ready to face the new day and all that it would bring. Their journey was far from over, but they knew that they would walk it together, hand in hand, as they forged a new destiny for Axiron 9 and its people. Shadows of the past. Months passed, and Axiron 9 continued to thrive under the leadership of the Faceless One and Lyra. The planet's defense system was completed, a marvel of technological ingenuity that shielded Axiron 9 from external threats. The people felt safe and secure, and the scars of war were gradually fading. But for the Faceless One, the past was never far behind, lurking in the shadows of his mind. One evening, while reviewing security reports in his private quarters, the Faceless One received an unexpected transmission. The message was encoded with a signature only one other person in the galaxy could use, a former colleague from his days before the accident, someone he had not seen or heard from in years. The message was brief but chilling. "We need to talk. The past isn't as buried as you think." The Faceless One's heart raced as he decoded the coordinates embedded in the transmission. They led to a remote, uncharted region of space known as the Abyssal Expanse, a place where few dared to venture. The message was a stark reminder that while he had changed, the sins of his past had not been forgotten. He knew he had to go, but he also knew that he couldn't do it alone. The next morning, the Faceless One sought out Lyra in the central command hub. She was overseeing the final stages of a new infrastructure project when he approached, his expression serious beneath the mask. "Lyra," he said quietly, "I need to leave Axiron 9 for a while. There's something I need to deal with, something from my past." Lyra looked up from her work, concern flashing in her eyes. "Is it dangerous?" "It could be," he admitted, "but it's something I have to face. I don't want to drag you into this, but I also know I can't do it alone. Will you come with me?" Without hesitation, Lyra nodded. "Of course I will. We've faced everything together so far. I'm not going to stop now." With their decision made, they prepared for the journey ahead. The Faceless One informed the Planetary Council of his temporary departure, ensuring that the defense system and governance of Axiron 9 would continue smoothly in his absence. He left the planet in capable hands, trusting that the people would carry on the work they had started. The journey to the Abyssal Expanse was long and perilous. The region was known for its unpredictable gravitational anomalies and treacherous asteroid fields, a place where even the most experienced pilots could lose their way. But with Lyra at the helm of their sleek starship, they navigated the hazards with precision and skill. As they neared their destination, the atmosphere grew tense. The Abyssal Expanse was shrouded in darkness, with no visible stars to guide their way. It was a place where light seemed to bend and twist, swallowed by the vast emptiness. Finally, they arrived at the coordinates given in the message. There, Floating in the void was a derelict space station, its exterior battered and worn by time. The station's lights were dim, flickering sporadically as if on the verge of failure. They docked carefully and made their way inside. The air was stale, the corridors cold and silent. The Faceless One led the way, his senses on high alert as they ventured deeper into the station. Eventually, they reached the central chamber, where a lone figure awaited them. Clad in a tattered cloak, the figure turned as they entered, revealing a face lined with age and sorrow. It was Dr. Eric Seron, a scientist who had once been one of the Faceless One's closest friends and collaborators. Kale. Dr. Seron greeted him by his true name, his voice heavy with regret. It's been a long time. The Faceless One, or Dr. Kale Voss, as he was once known, removed his mask, revealing the scars that marked his transformation. Eric, he replied, his tone guarded. Why did you send for me? What's going on? Dr. Seron sighed, the weight of his years evident in his posture. I wish this reunion were under better circumstances, but I've uncovered something that could put Chiron 9 and the entire galaxy at risk. He gestured toward a holographic projector, activating it with a wave of his hand. The image that appeared sent a chill down the Faceless One's spine. It was a schematic of an ancient device, one that had been the subject of their research many years ago, before the accident that had changed his life forever. This is the Singularity Core, Dr. Seron explained. It's a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of creating a black hole that could consume entire star systems. We were close to harnessing its energy for peaceful purposes, but after your accident, the project was abandoned. The Faceless One's mind raced as memories of the past flooded back. The Singularity Core had been their most ambitious project, one that promised to revolutionize energy production across the galaxy. But the risks had been immense, and they had ultimately deemed it too dangerous to continue. I thought we destroyed all the research, the Faceless One said, his voice tight. How did this resurface? Dr. Seron looked down, guilt etched on his face. We did, or so I thought. But some of our work survived, hidden in the deep archives of the Axironian Central Database. I discovered it by accident while researching a different project, and I'm not the only one who knows about it. Laura, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. Who else knows? Zorax's allies, Dr. Seron replied grimly. Before his defeat, he had made contact with a rogue faction of Chironians who were disillusioned with the new order. They've managed to recover the data and are attempting to rebuild the core as a weapon. If they succeed, the Faceless One felt a surge of dread. The consequences of such a weapon falling into the wrong hands were unthinkable. We have to stop them, he said, his resolve hardening. We can't let the mistakes of the past destroy everything we've worked for. Dr. Seron nodded in agreement. I've already started gathering the data we need to track them down. But we'll need to move quickly. They've likely begun the construction process, and once it's complete, it'll be nearly impossible to deactivate the core without triggering a catastrophe. As they discussed their next steps, the Faceless One felt a renewed sense of purpose. The shadows of the past had returned to haunt him, but this time he would not face them alone. With Lyra by his side and Dr. Seron's knowledge at their disposal, they would stop the rogue faction and ensure that the Singularity Core would never threaten the galaxy again. The mission would be dangerous, perhaps even more so than their battle against Zorax. But the Faceless One knew that he could not shy away from it. This was his chance to fully atone for his past, to ensure that the darkness he had once unleashed would be banished forever. As they prepared to leave the derelict station and embark on their new mission, the Faceless One donned his mask once more. The journey ahead would be fraught with peril, but he was ready. The past might have cast long shadows, but with Lyra and Dr. Seron by his side, he would walk through them with unwavering determination. Together, they would face the darkness and emerge victorious, no matter the cost. The hunt for the Singularity Core. The Faceless One, Lyra, and Dr. Seron quickly set a course for Axiron 9. Their mission was clear, but the path ahead was perilous. The rogue faction, now armed with knowledge that could potentially destroy the galaxy, was already moving to construct the Singularity Core. Time was of the essence. As they traveled back to Xiron 9, the trio meticulously planned their next steps. Dr. Seren, though aged and wary, still possessed an unparalleled understanding of the technology they were up against. He spent hours poring over schematics and old research notes, looking for any vulnerabilities in the core's design. "This won't be easy," Dr. Seren remarked, his brow furrowed as he studied the data. "Even if we locate the facility where they're building the core, deactivating it will be a complex and dangerous task. Any mistake could trigger a chain reaction that would be catastrophic." "We don't have a choice," the Faceless One replied, his voice steady. "We faced impossible odds before, and we came through. We'll do it again." Lyra, always the voice of optimism, added, "We've got something they don't, hope. They may be using fear and destruction as their weapons, but we have something stronger. We can inspire others to join us, to fight for a better future." As they neared Xiron 9, they made contact with the Planetary Council, informing them of the rogue faction's activities. The council was shocked by the news, but they quickly mobilized their forces to aid in the hunt. Scouts were dispatched across the planet and into nearby systems, searching for any sign of the faction's movements. It wasn't long before they received their first lead. A scout ship detected unusual energy readings coming from a remote moon orbiting Xiron 9's second-largest planet, Dracor. The readings matched the energy signature of the Singularity Core's early-stage construction. This was it, the rogue faction's base of operations. The Faceless One, Lyra, and Dr. Seren wasted no time. They coordinated with the Council to assemble a strike team, comprising the best soldiers and engineers Xiron 9 had to offer. Their mission was clear: infiltrate the base, stop the construction of the core, and capture the leaders of the rogue faction. As they approached the moon, the atmosphere inside their ship was tense. Everyone knew the stakes, and failure was not an option. The Faceless One, masked and ready for battle, addressed the team. "Today, we face a threat unlike any other," he began, his voice calm but powerful. "But we do not fight for ourselves alone. We fight for Xiron 9, for the galaxy, and for the future. Together, we will stop this madness and ensure that our home remains safe. Let's do this." With that, the team descended onto the moon's surface. The rogue faction's base was hidden within a vast network of caverns, shielded by advanced cloaking technology. But Lyra, ever resourceful, used her engineering skills to disable the cloaking devices, revealing the entrance to the base. Inside, the base was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, filled with machinery and armed guards. The Faceless One led the charge, his combat skills honed from years of battle. Lyra and Dr. Seren provided support, with Lyra hacking into security systems to give them an edge and Dr. Seren guiding them through the complex layout. As they pushed deeper into the base, the resistance grew fiercer. The rogue faction's soldiers were fanatical, fighting with a desperate ferocity that made every step forward a challenge. But the Faceless One and his team pressed on, determined to reach the core before it was too late. Finally, they arrived at the heart of the base, the central chamber where the Singularity Core was being constructed. The sight was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The core, a massive sphere of swirling energy, was suspended in the center of the chamber, surrounded by a web of conduits and control terminals. The energy it emitted was palpable, a force that seemed to warp the very fabric of reality around it. Standing before the core was the leader of the rogue faction, a figure shrouded in dark armor. His voice echoed through the chamber as he addressed the intruders. "You are too late," he sneered. "The core is nearly complete. Once it is activated, there will be no stopping its power. The galaxy will be remade, and those who stood against us will be the first to fall." The Faceless One stepped forward, his voice filled with resolve. "You think you can control this power? You're playing with forces beyond your understanding. This will destroy you, and everyone else." The rogue leader laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. We've made the sacrifices necessary for victory. What have you done? Clung to outdated notions of peace and compassion. The galaxy belongs to those strong enough to take it. Strength isn't just about power, Lyra shot back, her eyes blazing with determination. It's about knowing when to protect, when to create, and when to fight for what's right. That's something you'll never understand. The road leader snarled and activated the core's control panel. The sphere of energy began to pulse violently, growing in intensity as the activation sequence commenced. The ground shook, and the air crackled with raw energy. They had only minutes to stop it. The Faceless One, Lyra, and Dr. Seren sprang into action. Dr. Seren accessed the control terminals, frantically working to override the activation sequence. Lyra provided cover, using her quick reflexes and sharpshooting skills to hold off the rogue soldiers who rushed to defend their leader. The Faceless One confronted the rogue leader directly, their battle a clash of wills as much as of physical prowess. The leader fought with the fury of someone who believed he had nothing left to lose, but the Faceless One's resolve was unbreakable. Every strike, every move was driven by his determination to protect the galaxy and to atone for his past. As the battle raged on, Dr. Seren finally managed to breach the core's security protocols. But there was a problem. The only way to fully deactivate the core would be to trigger a controlled implosion, a process that would destroy the base and everyone in it. "We have to get out of here," Dr. Seren shouted over the din. "I can start the implosion remotely, but we won't have much time." The Faceless One knocked the rogue leader to the ground, disarming him in one final, decisive move. "Do it," he ordered, not missing a beat. "Everyone, fall back to the ship." Lyra and the strike team began their retreat, covering each other as they made their way back through the base's corridors. The Faceless Ones stayed behind, just long enough to ensure the rogue leader was incapacitated before following the others. Dr. Seren initiated the implosion sequence, and the base began to collapse around them. The walls trembled, and the ground buckled as the core's energy destabilized. It was a race against time as they sprinted for the exit, the sounds of destruction echoing behind them. They reached their ship just as the cavern's entrance began to cave in. The pilot fired up the engines, and they blasted off the surface of the moon, barely escaping as the entire facility was consumed in a cataclysmic implosion. The singularity core and the threat it posed was no more. As their ship ascended into space, the Faceless One looked out at the wreckage below. The rogue faction had been defeated, and the galaxy was safe for now. But he knew that this victory, like so many before it, had come at a cost. Lyra approached him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "We did it," she said softly, her voice filled with relief and exhaustion. The Faceless One nodded, though his expression remained somber. "Yes, we did. But the fight is never truly over. We'll always have to protect what we've built." "And we will," Lyra replied with quiet confidence. "Together." As the ship set course for Axiron 9, the Faceless One allowed himself a moment of reflection. The past had tried to reclaim him, but he had stood firm. The future was uncertain, but with Lyra and Dr. Seren by his side, he knew they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. They had won this battle, but the war to protect the galaxy's future was ongoing, and the Faceless One, once a figure of darkness, was now its guardian, a symbol of hope, redemption, and the unyielding strength of the human spirit. The Warlord's Reckoning. Upon returning to Axiron 9, the Faceless One, Lyra, and Dr. Seren were greeted as heroes. The news of their triumph over the rogue faction spread rapidly, filling the hearts of the Axironian people with pride and relief. However, the victory was short-lived. As the planet celebrated, dark tidings arrived. Zorax the Conqueror had assembled his forces and was preparing for a final devastating assault on Axiron 9. Zorax, enraged by the loss of the Singularity Core, had vowed to annihilate Axiron 9 and take its resources for his war machine. His fleet, a massive armada of heavily armed warships and ruthless soldiers, was already en route. The Planetary Council, aware of the impending doom, scrambled to organize a defense, but the situation seemed grim. In the heart of Zephyrus, the capital city, the Faceless One and his companions met with the council to discuss their strategy. The atmosphere was tense, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on everyone present. "The Conqueror's fleet is enormous," one council member said, his voice filled with dread. "Our planetary defenses won't hold for long against such overwhelming firepower. We're facing certain destruction." "We've been in impossible situations before," Lara replied, her voice steady but determined. "We just need to think creatively, find a way to turn the odds in our favor." The Faceless One, silent until now, stepped forward. "Zorax is powerful, but his strength lies in brute force. He doesn't understand the power of unity and resolve. We need to rally the people, inspire them to stand and fight, not just for themselves, but for the future of Thyron 9. Dr. Seren nodded in agreement. "There's more to victory than just military might. If we can disrupt Zorax's command structure, create chaos within his ranks, we might stand a chance." The plan began to take shape. The Faceless One and his team would lead a daring mission to infiltrate Zorax's flagship, the Ravager, and disable its command systems. Without Zorax's direct leadership, his forces would be thrown into disarray, giving the Azyronian defense fleet a fighting chance. But there was another element to their plan, rallying the citizens of Thyron 9. The Faceless One knew that the people needed to see that they weren't alone in this fight. He would make a public address, revealing his identity and calling upon every capable being on the planet to rise and defend their home. The day before Zorax's fleet was expected to arrive, the Faceless One stood before a massive crowd in Zephyrus. The city's Grand Plaza was filled with citizens, soldiers, and dignitaries, all eager to hear from the mysterious figure who had become their symbol of hope. As the Faceless One stepped onto the stage, the crowd fell silent, all eyes on him. Slowly, he reached up and removed his mask, revealing the scarred face beneath. Gasps echoed through the crowd, but instead of fear or revulsion, there was a collective sense of respect and admiration. "I was once known as Dr. Kel Voss," he began, his voice strong and clear. "A man who let fear and anger drive him to darkness. But I stand before you today, not as the Faceless One, but as someone who believes in the power of redemption, of unity, and of hope." He looked out over the crowd, meeting the eyes of those who watched him with a mixture of awe and determination. "Zorax the Conqueror comes to destroy our world, to take from us everything we hold dear. But he underestimates us. He doesn't understand that Thyron 9 is not just a planet, it's our home, and we will defend it with everything we have." The crowd erupted in cheers, their fear replaced by a newfound resolve. The Faceless One's words had ignited a fire within them, a collective will to resist the coming storm. As the final preparations were made, the Faceless One, Lyra, and Dr. Seren boarded a stealth vessel provided by the Council. Their mission was perilous: penetrate Zorax's defenses, infiltrate the Ravager, and disable its command systems before the fleet could launch its full-scale assault. The journey through space was tense, every second bringing them closer to the enemy. The Azyronian defense fleet, although outnumbered, was ready to engage Zorax's forces, buying time for the infiltration team to complete their mission. As they approached the Ravager, the enormity of the task ahead became apparent. The flagship was a behemoth, bristling with weaponry and surrounded by a swarm of smaller ships. But Lyra, with her unparalleled piloting skills, expertly navigated through the fleet's defenses, bringing them to a docking point on the Ravager's underside. Once inside, the trio moved swiftly through the ship's labyrinthine corridors, avoiding patrols and security systems. Their destination was the command center, deep within the ship, where Zorax himself would likely be overseeing the battle. As they neared the command center, they encountered heavier resistance. Zorax's elite guards, clad in dark armor, were formidable opponents, but the Faceless One led the charge, his combat skills and determination driving them forward. Lyra and Dr. Seren provided crucial support, with Lyra disabling security systems and Seren using his knowledge of the ship's design to guide them through the complex. Finally, they reached the command center. The doors slid open to reveal Zorax, a towering figure of menace, standing at the helm of the ship. His eyes glinted with malice as he turned to face his intruders. So, the so-called Faceless One reveals himself. Zorax sneered, his voice dripping with contempt. You think you can stop me? You're nothing but a relic of a broken man, clinging to delusions of grandeur. The Faceless One stepped forward, his gaze unwavering. I'm here to end this, Zorax. You've brought nothing but pain and destruction, and it stops now. Zorax laughed, a cold, hollow sound. You're a fool if you think you can stand against me. I have the power to crush entire worlds. But you don't have the power to crush hope, Lyra interjected, her voice filled with defiance. And that's something you'll never understand. With a roar of rage, Zorax lunged at the Faceless One, initiating a brutal fight. The clash was intense, with Zorax's brute strength meeting the Faceless One's agility and combat skill. Every strike was a battle of wills, as much as it was a battle of physical strength. Meanwhile, Dr. Seren worked furiously at the command consoles, overriding the ship's systems to disable its weapons and communication arrays. Lyra provided cover, using her quick reflexes to fend off guards that tried to intervene. The fight between Zorax and the Faceless One was fierce, but the Faceless One's resolve was unyielding. He fought not just for himself, but for the people of Chiron 9, for the hope of a better future. With a final decisive blow, he disarmed Zorax and brought him to his knees. You may have power, the Faceless One said, his voice low but resolute, but you have no understanding of what it means to protect, to inspire, to build. That's why you'll never truly win. Zorax snarled in defeat, but before he could respond, the ship's systems began to shut down, thanks to Dr. Seren's efforts. The Ravager was crippled, its weapons offline, its communications severed. The Axironian fleet, now facing a leaderless enemy, pressed the advantage, routing Zorax's forces in space. As the battle raged outside, Lyra signaled their ship for extraction. They couldn't risk staying on the Ravager any longer. The ship was unstable, and it wouldn't be long before it began to collapse under its own weight. The team made a hasty retreat, leaving Zorax behind in his disabled command center. As they escaped the ship, they watched from a distance as the Ravager was overwhelmed by the Axironian fleet's concentrated firepower. The once feared flagship was reduced to a flaming wreck, a symbol of Zorax's downfall. Back on Chiron 9, the news of Zorax's defeat spread quickly. The people rejoiced, knowing that the immediate threat to their world had been vanquished. The Faceless One, Lyra, and Dr. Seren returned to Zephyrus as heroes, their names forever etched in the annals of Cyronian history. But for the Faceless One, the victory was bittersweet. He had faced his demons and emerged victorious, but he knew that the fight for peace and justice was never truly over. There would always be new challenges, a new dawn. The aftermath of the battle was a time of reflection and rebuilding for Chiron 9. The city of Zephyrus, scarred by the recent conflict, was slowly coming back to life. The once ruined streets were being cleared, and the citizens, inspired by their newfound heroes, were working tirelessly to restore their home to its former glory. The Faceless One, now recognized as Dr. Kel Voss once more, stood in the heart of the city, surveying the progress. Though he wore his mask less frequently now, it was clear that his journey was far from over. He had found redemption, but he was also acutely aware that he needed to lead by example, showing that true change came from within. Lyra, ever the energetic force, had taken on a new role as a liaison between the Planetary Council and the citizens. Her tireless efforts were instrumental in organizing aid and resources, and her ability to inspire others continued to shine through. Her bond with Dr. Voss had grown stronger, their shared experiences forging a deep and lasting friendship. Dr. Seren, meanwhile, had resumed his research, but with a renewed sense of purpose. He had become an advisor to the council, helping to rebuild the scientific infrastructure that had been damaged during the conflict. His work was now driven not just by a quest for knowledge, but by a desire to ensure that Chiron 9 would be better prepared for any future threats. As the days turned into weeks, the planet's defenses were reinforced, and new alliances were formed. The battle against Zorax had shown the Axironian people the strength of unity and the importance of standing together in the face of adversity. The lessons learned from the conflict became the foundation for a new era of cooperation and progress. One evening, as the sun set over Zephyrus, casting a golden hue over the city, Dr. Voss stood atop a balcony overlooking the bustling streets below. Laura joined him, her presence a comforting reminder of the journey they had shared. "You know," she said, "we've come a long way. It's hard to believe how much has changed since we first met." Dr. Voss nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Yes, it has been quite a journey. I've learned that redemption is not just about absolving oneself of past mistakes, but about continually striving to do better." Laura smiled. "And you've shown everyone that it's possible. You've inspired people to believe in something greater than themselves." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Dr. Saren, who approached with a look of excitement. "I've just received word that the Council has approved a new initiative, a project to advance our technology and expand our exploration beyond Chiron 9. They want us to lead it." Dr. Voss looked at his friends, his heart swelling with pride and hope. "This is more than I could have hoped for. It's a chance for us to build something lasting, to contribute to the future of our world." As the three friends stood together, the city below them alive with the promise of a new beginning, they knew that their work was far from done. The fight for a better future was ongoing, but they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Axironian people, having witnessed the incredible resilience and strength of their heroes, were filled with a renewed sense of purpose. They worked to rebuild their planet and forge new paths, guided by the lessons learned from their recent trials. In the end, it was clear that the true victory lay not just in defeating a formidable foe, but in the transformation of a world and its people. The legacy of Dr. Kel Voss, Lyra, and Dr. Saren would be one of courage, hope, and the enduring power of unity. As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight sky, the future of Chiron 9 shone brightly, a testament to the strength of its people and the heroes who had led them through the darkness into the dawn of a new era.